In our latest interview, we speak to Iceland's Omnom Chocolate about its remarkable rise over the past 7 or 8 years. We discuss how the business, which started out in a former petrol station, has risen rapidly, and last year it invited Zac Efron round to make chocolate, which is just one of its many recent successes. Well, thank you very much indeed, Kjartan, for joining us today regarding your company Omnom, which is a great and growing business in Iceland there. So for those that aren't familiar with your company, can you explain your fascinating journey over the past 7 or 8 years in setting it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So we started this company, I think we're on our 8th year at the moment. And my background as a chef, I've always kind of been very curious about any kind of food things, and specifically desserts. And chocolate was always something on my radar that I felt it needed a little bit more explanation and understanding. So it became like a little fascination with me after I learned about the bean to bar movement of chocolate making, specifically in the US, that you could be producing chocolate on a very small scale. And it kind of stuck with me that I wanted maybe to just experiment, see if I could make it on my own, just understanding the process. I pitched this idea to my childhood friend Oscar, that I had this idea that I wanted to open up maybe like a pastry shop / bakery. And one of the things we would do there would make our own chocolate, all our pastry items. I thought it was a fascinating thing to combine those two together. He is a little bit more business-centric minded than me, so he saw the opportunity, not wanting to start running a little store, but maybe focus our energy on trying to make a very good chocolate, and just look at the category of chocolate, what it is today and where it is heading, and just see if there we had an input, maybe do something different, something outside the box in terms of how you experience chocolate, what do you know about chocolate, where does it come from, and as well the kind of aesthetic part of purchasing a bar of chocolate, this kind of Willy Wonka excitement of seeing a bar of chocolate in the shelf and taking one home with you and just having that kind of unboxing moment. I think we've grown this business very healthy. We haven't spent a lot of money on marketing or any kind of that, but now we have a marketing manager, but back then we were just doing everything on our own and taking phone calls and delivering products ourselves to customers. So we've taken kind of like all the kind of entrepreneur steps that you can really, from mopping the floor after the shift and so forth. So Absolutely. When we moved into this new facility that we kind of had to refurbish on our own, we had a little bigger business plan for that model. And I think last year or before COVID hit us, we just had our first really good turnaround year where we were actually having profits. I mean, we've always had profits, but we've also had debt. We had to take out loans from machinery and stuff like that, but we were seeing profits finally come in. And even though we had this last year as it was probably one of our best years in history, because we were lucky enough to be featured on an episode on Netflix with Zac Efron, where he actually visited us and got to make his own chocolate.
Wow.
And that in turn, we had a lot of good online sales in the States. We just had set up a shop there and the delivery system. So we were really fortunate that we had done that just before the show was aired, because our sales just skyrocketed. Maybe it's because people were at home watching Netflix and not much else to do, or which is timing, I think. But that has kind of sustained us even today, that coming out of COVID, we feel like we've finally got a little foothold, specifically at the US market.
Yeah, and you seem extremely passionate about the chocolate world. So can you explain how your journey into becoming a chef happened for you?
I think I just was never good at school. Maybe partly I have some kind of dyslexic, or I have a short attention span. So working, I went into, my journey went from to be a dishwasher and then ended somehow in the kitchen. And it just, I want to say it came natural to me, but there was something in the air of working in a busy kitchen. There's high intensity, but there's also, you're cooking, and it was something that just appealed to me at the time. I remember growing up and maturing in that world, I fell in love with just cooking, with ingredients, with flavors. And I that's been biggest part of my life has been around food. I always enjoyed food or wine or whatever food related. So it's always been easy for me, so to say. I can't explain. I don't have maybe a particular good set of taste or something like that, but I like food and I understand how it works. So yeah, I mean, and then like I say, I've always had this kind of curiosity, whether it's an ingredient or a method or a type of cuisine. So I always kind of want to dig in and see what the elements are. I love traveling and just eating foreign different food or ingredients or flavors that I never had before. I think that's partly what drives me when it comes to, for instance, with chocolate. It's a fun medium to work with. You're both kind of working with the flavor, but you're also kind of working with a product concept idea. And you're in the confectionery world, which, I grew up eating candy like every other kid. And a lot of my inspiration comes from that childhood memories. But also, you think about sugar and how much sugar is in products today, and understanding why there's so much sugar in product. Maybe I'm deviating from one thing, but I've tried to be very thoughtful about not overusing sugar. Because as you know, sugar is just a seasoning for something like chocolate, which is very bitter. So you need to have it sweet, but you can go overboard with it. So I always think about how much sugar I really need. And as you know, sugar is, again, a preservative. So you don't need that a lot, except if you really want a really long shelf date. So, but also just thinking that I like the kind of confectionery world to be more thoughtful in terms of texture and flavor, and I love playing with this kind of elements.
The product range itself, I believe you've taken a very sort of strong stand on your ethical sourcing from sustainable locations around the world. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Thanks.
Yeah, I think in the beginning I wasn't, how do you say, I don't want to come off that. I wasn't really interested in any kind of this environment or that aspect. What I was always interested in is just where can I get the best flavored product or the best flavored raw ingredients. And I think that just comes from being a chef. You're kind of like caught up if you know this farmer, his tomatoes are going to taste much better than the commercial one made. So I think it was just that instinct of understanding that small producers or farmers make the best ingredients because they're doing with love. So I thought, okay, we'll just apply that same method in sourcing our raw material. Of course, when you start going deeper and you get more understanding to it, you understand that this type of manufacture of raw ingredient is the best way to go. And like I say, I recycle my trash and all that, but I'm not always my mindset is not particularly on that, but it's more about finding the best ingredient. And I kind of know the best ingredient is always produced with the most ethical way.
Adhering to strong ethical standards, that must make you feel better about what you're producing, though, sort of going to...
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're causing less problems for yourself when you choose this route. And it's more expensive, but I think it's a much bigger payoff in the end. I mean, you can buy cheaper ingredient, more mass-produced products or bulk and stuff like that. And just by looking at the price, that something isn't right. There's somebody's not getting paid, or somebody's not getting paid enough. And the reasons why once you start researching why things are the way they are.
How challenging has it been for you to carry on production amid the pandemic?
Like early part of the pandemic, so this is back in March, April, when the pandemic fully hit Iceland. We just saw that, with tourism gone almost overnight, you could just see our sales going down rapidly. We had been very dependent on tourism. Our local sales weren't that much, so we decided that we could move into supermarkets here in Iceland, which we had, but we wanted to go a little bit more full force. We did have to start laying off people, I think around 6 people at that time. And so, I mean, if we've been talking exactly this time last year, so my mood was not good. We were kind of backs against the wall, trying to understand what is going to happen now. The pandemic was lowering again, because there was that steep curve that came in April, May, and then it started going back down this time last year, but still everything was in the unknown. So it was a month later then, in July, that Netflix show aired that things just skyrocketed for us. And we couldn't keep up with demand of products that we could sell. So that was the kind of turbulence roller coaster ride that we went through last year. We got to hire everybody back that we laid off, and even more people. I think we got really lucky with that. The timing that we got that episode aired, it just really, I can't state how important it was for us last year, but it definitely changed everything. I don't know what would have happened if that hadn't been aired. But it also showed us that, we do have an appeal. There is a customer base out there that we do have an appeal to. And we might need to develop more time and money for marketing outside of Iceland, which is kind of what we always, I said we didn't have a business plan, but we did have a conscious idea that we wanted to sell our chocolate abroad. I think that was a conscious thing we knew. We put all our packaging in English. We weren't focused on the local market. We knew that we wanted to be some kind of international brand. That was the only brand idea that we had. So I think last year we saw that we could actually be that. This opened up also some channels to China last year, the European market, which the UK and the European market kind of opened up a little bit as well. So we saw a lot of drastic changes in a very short amount of time, and we ended the year breaking all our sales records, which was phenomenal.
Can you explain about Omnom as a name? Where did that come from?
I was just coming up with some kind of ideas what our product could be called. When I was looking into the bean to bar kind of culture, I felt everybody was super serious about their single origins and where it's coming from, and I respect that. I think it's a good story to tell. But I also felt like there was most of it, like when we were looking into packaging and names of companies, that they all sounded very poetic and nice. But I felt that like chocolate should be fun. It should be something that kids or elderly, everybody from the 0 to 99 understands that chocolate is delicious, it's fun. And when it comes back to that kind of really Wonka thing, that you want it to be excited when you open up a bar of chocolate. Omnom was like gibberish from like nom nom. You could see it as like an internet meme all over the place, and it just kind of stuck with me. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper and I sent it to my designer who was working with us at the time. And he came back with some ideas for logos and stuff like that. And I thought just like the symmetric look that he just sent back, the O and M, the N and O M, it looked very just nice on paper. And the name was silly enough that you kind of were hoping to like unshackle your kind of seriousness about chocolate.
As a nation, what in your eyes makes Iceland special as a destination and somewhere where you can source your own ingredients as well?
Yeah, some of the ingredients we get here, for instance, the milk and some of the barley that we use for a couple of our bars, salt, of course. Not a lot of other ingredients that we use for our chocolate production because it's mostly cocoa bean, sugar, and cocoa butter. But as a destination, I think Iceland is, you don't really see it until like I've lived abroad, in both in Luxembourg and some parts of Scandinavia. And once I come back, we kind of appreciate what Iceland is, what it is. The weather here can be really extreme. For instance, the winters are very dark and the summers are very bright. For instance, now we have 24-hour sunlight, and the winter we almost have like 3 hours of sunlight. So it's the kind of nature elements can be very extreme here. We have a volcano erupting at the moment, which is kind of fun because you can actually go walk there and watch it. But I think it's for people who come here sometimes are looking for that type of tranquility in nature. It's fairly accessible, most of these kind of areas from Reykjavik. And I don't know, I could talk about where to travel and stuff like that in Reykjavik or Iceland, but I think it's always good that you're never far away from nature. Like for instance, you're never far away from sea, you're never far away from any mountains, or we don't have forests, but we have a lot of landscapes. So you're never far from any type of nature. So you're never far more than 20 minutes away, and you're middle of nowhere.
And has that inspired you in any way with any of the creation of your ranges there, the nature around you?
No, but it's a good place to go to really relieve from stress or something like that. Maybe one bottle, which is called the Black and Burnt Barley, which is made from Icelandic barley corn. We also use a little bit of volcano ash and salt in it. It's probably our most kind of nature-inspired chocolate bar we made. It's a white chocolate, but it's actually black. So
deal with it's just been a really difficult time. But it sounds as if you're weathering the storm, which is good. And the rest of the year looks promising. Do you have plans to expand your exports? You're exporting to America. Will you be coming into the rest of Europe soon, hopefully?
Yeah, I mean, we have just one local dealer that takes care of the European market. He's situated in Germany. We've had UK presence, I think, since 2014, but we could do more there, definitely. I think it's a tricky market. It's not like the US market. It's not like Europe. It's a little different how you would approach it. So I feel like we still have the UK to kind of conquer, so to speak. But I think, like I said, just try to maintain what we were doing 2 years ago and try to just keep the good relationships that happened there. There's always going to be need for chocolate, I think. I don't think there's any less of a demand now. If anything, it's more. So we know we're at least doing something that people like. We just want to build on that.
Thank you for that, Kjartan. But as a closing point there, if I could just ask you about, what do you enjoy most about your role? What keeps you enthused and passionate about being part of leading the business?
Definitely the kind of creative side, still having the passion of trying to explore new flavors. We had so many kind of visits to origin places like Tanzania and Madagascar on the plans for last year that fell all through. I've been just dying to go to see the origin places where our product is coming from. We've only done one of those trips to Nicaragua, and that really gave me a lot of insight and understanding of where we're getting stuff from. So this is my work, but it's also my hobby. So I enjoy every aspect of it. And I just doing trips like that, meeting the people, it always gives me something to work with.